Supposed to be live right now. Hi, Nicole. They say we're live. What do you think? Are we live? I don't know. Let's play some music for everybody. Good morning. Morning. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Ready? In the chilly hours and minutes of uncertainty, I want to be in the warm hold of your love and mine. Come on in, everybody, to feel you all around me and to take your hand along the sand. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Come on in. Tell us where you're from. When sundown pales the sky, I want to hide a while behind your smile, and everywhere I'd look, your eyes I'd find. For me to love you now would be the sweetest thing. It would make me sing. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Dee 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 dee. When rain has hung the leaves with tears, I want you near to kill my fears, to help me leave all my blues behind. For standing in your heart is where I want to be. I long to be, but I may as well try and catch the wind. Good morning, Nicole. How are you? We're in the instrumental. Look at all the people coming in. I'm so excited.
I'm good. I'm so good.
Okay, we got messages coming in. We'll just give Donovan from the 1960s. His name was Donovan Leach, an English fellow. Is where I want to be and long to be. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Nicole. How are you? How are you doing this morning? You've had a big week.
I am good. I'm happy to report that Puppy is no longer coughing. He is unfortunately not well, but we are addressing that best as we can. It's been a lot of trips to the vet, a lot of medication, but he seems to be improved this morning. So
Good.
we're going to just keep praying, and I'm going to keep spoiling him. So that's that. And just, yes, a lot going on. I was live yesterday morning from my audio room.
Yeah.
But I completely forgot to post the event. So I went live. I posted the live 20 minutes before.
Well, you did it. You did it, right?
Yes, and it was great because the room did fill up and people did come up to speak. And it was nice to have coffee with people yesterday morning.
Yeah. Well, so glad you're here. Puppy is better. And hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Flowers. This is Mind Over Matter Mondays. We do this on Monday morning, and we pick a interesting topic. I think that we can all learn about how to manage our reactions with responses as often as possible. No one is perfect. But that's our mission here. And let me say hello to each one of you and thank you for being here. And I know that you have been here week after week after week. And I'm happy to tell you that my former co host, Paulette Hallam, is back on the LinkedIn streets this week. She's got a live panel this afternoon and one tomorrow afternoon. So if you've been missing Paulette, just go to her profile and you will see that her events have begun again. And we're also happy that she is far into her recuperation. So, yeah, this is really good news. So, let me say hello to all of you. Today, we're talking about perception and viewpoint. And let me just set the room here and let you know what we'll be talking about. For the first 20 minutes, we're going to, Nicole and I are going to kick this around a little bit. And here are some questions. If you didn't read them in the events, also join us on stage at 10:30. The link is in the comments. I will put it in there again. But what we're looking at is, how many times have we been misunderstood? Like every day? Right. There's a reason for it. And the confusion around perception gets clearer. The fog lifts when you understand how it occurs in our human mind. What actually is happening, because we think in pictures. If we can picture in our mind's eye the logic and the process, even if we don't understand everything, then things get clearer, and out of confusion comes clarity and action. When we're confused, very often we take no action. So the first 20 minutes, I will be acknowledging you. And setting the room is to let you start to think about, what we're going to be talking about. Actually, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to do that after I acknowledge you all, because I want you to be present for your acknowledgement. So first of all, let me acknowledge my beautiful co-host, Nicole Angai Galindo, who stepped in this year to really be a co-pilot. And she's been phenomenal. If you don't know the people in the group here that are showing up, these are people that show up all the time to the rooms that I'm in, right? And that Nicole is in, and there's lots of rooms. So get to know each other. And let us say hello first to Michelle Bodenhorn, who is saying hello to you. Would you like to say hello to her? Why don't you acknowledge Michelle? Why don't you?
Absolutely. Hi, Michelle. So I am actually, if you see me looking down, I'm saying hi to every single person that's coming into the room, but in the comments while Leslie's chatting.
Okay,
So,
great.
Good morning, Michelle. It was very nice to hear you speak, by the way, on a live show recently. I loved that you on camera, and I just love your whole presence. I saw a lot of pieces and hearts in the background when you weren't chatting, and I think that visually it's such a great way to support the conversation.
Yes. That's what makes Michelle special. Thank you for doing that. And here is our Dr. Ann John Banerjee in India. Let me just say that sometimes when I am being feisty or have a point of view that is different than other people, and some people don't like it, some do, but Dr. Ann John always stands. He can always tell, right, what I'm saying, and he always has my back. So thank you for that. And I'm going to move on down here. And there's a lot of beautiful comments, which I will do my best to show during the show. Let me just say hello here. Now, Lois is a wonderful new friend from the Netherlands. I've only gotten to know you, Lois, a few months ago, but she is, for me, most people know that I like to stay on LinkedIn, but she's one of the very few that ignores that and sends me things to different platforms that she thinks I would like. And I have to tell you, I've gone to some of them. And Dr. Anjan does that too, but nobody does it like Lois. Her job, in my view, is to make sure everybody knows everything about every room anywhere that she could find it. It's pretty unique and extraordinary. So thank you, Lois, for doing this for us, for all of us, for those of you who receive her messages. I'm very grateful. And Liana Stock. Hi, Liana Stockluoma. Liana, you've been coming to this room a long time. Do you, Nick, do you know Liana?
Yes, actually, I do. And Liana and I actually co-authored in a book together.
So why
Um,
don't you acknowledge her this morning?
sure, of course. So Liana, I believe she speaks a lot on diabetics, on diabetes. And we did co-author in Rattled Awake that was published by Lonnie Ree. So Liana and I got an opportunity to really talk behind the scenes because part of, I guess, the publishing process is we share a bit about our stories. And we were together working in a Zoom breakout room, and we were able to go through our chapters with each other. So there's a lot of overlap in the circles.
Very
Um,
cool. That
yes,
is
very
so
much so.
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm learning something too. So let's take a look here at our Tracy. Okay, so Tracy, she's listening to and in the sun. So Tracy's one of the smartest women I know on LinkedIn, but she kind of hides it behind a very sweet, quiet decibel level of speaking. But people, she's teaching Sun Tzu, the art of war. And you're like a sister to me because I teach Think and Grow Rich. And there aren't too many women doing this. So I have a lot of respect for you. And also, Tracy's one of those, if you have a question about something technical or audio, she usually has the answer. So really, really important to get to know Tracy and everybody. Okay, look at all the, okay, so on the bottom of your screen, there are three dots. You can tap them and see the event details. From there, you can share. If you know anybody, just share it, post it out on the on LinkedIn, and anybody who's available will be able to join us. Okay, and here is Ashif. Oh, that's right. Look at, you're all green. I was gonna wear green today. This is St. Patrick's Day, isn't it? March 17th. Well, you have a green background.
This actually was not on purpose. I do not remember if this was the background I had up lost, because I have several for
Yeah,
StreamYard.
yeah, yeah.
And you know what? It's fitting because I have my name up as Nick the GBW. So it's perfect actually that this is the background. I think this will be the Leslie background for this show. And yes, it is St. Patty's Day. Oh my goodness. I don't know how
Yeah.
many of you may have joined the parade yesterday, but my husband and I bunch of old farts. So the parade was just down the street, and we were just like, nah.
You've seen it. When you've been to a parade, you've been to a parade. So let me share who Ashif is for me. I want you to know when we acknowledge you here, it's how we perceive you. We're going to get into this conversation in a minute. My perception of you is a specific way, Ashif, because continue to look for the greatness in you, in other people. And the greatness that I see whenever I see you is that you have a similar ability to me, probably much better, the ability to articulate complex concepts in simple form. As we become studied in our field and as the years and the decades go by, we tend to stop going so wide, right? And learning. We at some point, and this is what happened to me, and it seems, I think, Ashi, for you too, that there's a certain point in our life when we start to go deep and narrow and we begin to study. And that is when you become a master at anything, you're able to simplify it for other people. Because 15 years ago, if I tried to explain to you what I'm going to explain to you today, I would be tongue tied because I was still in a state of confusion. So, out of confusion over time comes order. And Ashif, I say, is if you believe in reincarnation, he's our Rumi, the 21st century Rumi. So, thank you so much for being here and always being here. Do you know Shoadul? He's a new friend? No? Okay.
I should
So,
just keep myself off of mute. I keep trying to mute and then mute back on, get back
well,
on.
when
I
I'm not,
actually, don't
Go
know
ahead.
him very well, but he's very kind. A couple of days ago, he reached out in the DMs and just said hello and how are you, and obviously responded and asked the same. But it's very nice that the people that I get to meet here do reach out in the DMs to say hello, especially after we've connected. I really appreciate that.
That's
Um,
beautiful, beautiful show, Adul. And I don't know you as much as I would like to, but one thing I do know about you is that this subject fascinates you and you are a consistent visitor. Not many people are that disciplined. So this room is filled with people that you will know that part of their character, which we have talked about, and Paulette and I talked about that a lot over the last few months, is people that are their word, that show up. Now, I've learned that in these live events and all of our events, very often, and I'm grateful for this, you select attend and you're going to do your best to be here. I get that. You cannot be everywhere. But for me, when I see you say attend, that's a vote for me, for the work, that you like this, that it has value to you. Whether or not you show up is your choice, right? And you do. Most everybody here shows up continually. Now we have Joni in the studio. Joni, I will send by the pool boy with an orange juice mimosa. We'll have a plain one or one that's has a touch of vodka, whatever goes in it, and a couple of croissants. And we'll be with you in just a few minutes. So please sit back and enjoy yourself in our green room. And there's Linda Meyer. Do you know Linda?
this is another lady I'm just getting to know as well. I see her in all of my posts, engaging, always leaving great comments and very encouraging. So thank you. It's so nice to meet you as well. I just have to say it's St. Patty's Day, so we gotta give backstage Guinnesses today.
Okay. Oh, and Guinness. Gosh, that's the only drink that I liked in London. I don't like beer. But when they gave me a Guinness at room temperature, it was phenomenal. It has this,
Malt.
yeah, but there's a molasses. Maybe that's the malt. There's kind of this molasses background to it. It isn't as sharp as beer. So you
Yeah,
can drink a lot of
it's
Guinness.
very
Okay.
rich.
All right, Joni, we'll change it out to Guinness. Good point. Good point. Oh, and Linda is as a chef and hails from Italy. I know a few things about her, and she always shows up. I love that. And there's Lisa Fevick. Lisa is our registered dietitian, and she is part of the virtual wellness experience that's coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday, online with 21 speakers. Lisa's specialty is her room on menopause, managing menopause. But you know what? Don't think that because you don't have menopause or you're not in it or you're past it, it can last decades. And if you're a man, your wife or your partner, if your female partner is in menopause, it can last 30 years. Not usually, but it can. And you could have over 100 different symptoms. So it's really important. Lisa is a registered dietitian, and her job is to make sure that we use eating the right foods to help exacerbate those symptoms, if you will. We can't get rid of them completely, but we can eat properly. And what she's sharing with us is good measure anytime. So you can do this one. You can acknowledge this person. Look who's here. Your turn. Are you
I
unmuted? There you go.
absolutely can acknowledge this person. This is Sharon Byrne. Sharon and I actually didn't meet that long ago. I would say maybe beginning of last year. And we had a wonderful opportunity to enjoy a meal together at a diner. She had grilled cheese, if I remember correctly, maybe French fries. And I was a bad girl and I was in the mood for a waffle and ice cream. So Sharon lives about maybe half an hour to 40 minutes away from me. And I'm really excited because I was telling her now that I've gone into my entrepreneurial journey and I can manage my time, I really want to meet her once a month to have lunch.
That's awesome. Yes, Sharon is awesome. Thank you for acknowledging her. I know you work closely with her. And I will acknowledge Sandra because Sandra bought my book, The Possibility of Errata, read it, loved it, and then she took a picture of herself with it and posted it on LinkedIn. You know, that doesn't happen that often. And it just, Sandra, that was such an act of generosity. And Sandra's really smart in the area we're going to be talking about today. So, Sandra, please grab the link that's in the comments if you'd like to come into the studio. We'll be opening the studio up. Joni's back there with a Guinness in each hand, I think, if I'm not mistaken here. No, she might be just eating donuts. Who knows?
Irish soda bread.
Irish soda bread. Okay, got it. Got it. It's Guinness and Irish soda bread. Can we put butter on it, please?
Oh, lots. I love it with butter too.
Okay,
It's
okay,
a little
okay.
too dry for me.
Okay, so it's slathered then in lots of Irish butter that has been softened so that you can take a spoonful of it and turn the spoon upside down, and the big glob of butter is on top of the soda bread in the back of the spoon.
You're making me hungry.
Okay, I'm sorry. How do we get to that? Oh, that's because Joni is in the background. All right, we're just about ready to get it started here. All silliness aside, I don't want to miss anybody. And thank you all for all your comments. It really, really helps. Oh my gosh, look who's here. Mariana is here. Hi. Yes, yeah. Thank you. And that is from Lisa Fevick. There's Mariana, and a big supporter, and it lives in Eastern Europe. All right. Thank you for being here, Mariana. I've missed seeing you. I hope everything is well with you. Double checking. Okay. We are good. All right. So let's set the room here. We're doing well. It's 10:23. In about 10 minutes, we want you to come up. And Nick, if you could put in the comments, would you put in the link? Would you mind doing that? Do you have access to? You do. And just in case someone can't find it, because sometimes when I put the link in the comments, I can't find it. So when people say, I can't find the link, I go, neither can I. Right. It happens. It happens. All right. So let's talk about this a little bit and get centered on this subject. This is really a powerful subject, and there's a lot to get inside of. But honestly, when people misunderstand us, it has to do with perception. So we want to look at, what do we really know about how our mind perceives the world? We don't know much. We just know we do, that we perceive it. And it's important to know, I just want to give you this distinction before we start. Okay, so, oh shoot, that's not the thing I wanted here. All right, must be this one. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so according to the definition, I actually asked AI. I usually don't do that. I go to the dictionary, but I guess they're both the same. Anyway, I liked the way it was described. It went on with a lot more information. I asked for simple, and I got a mouthful. And I agree. Perception refers to how we interpret and process information through our senses and our experiences and feelings or emotions. That is what perception is. It's how we see the world. Keep in mind that no two people see it the same, ever. Not in the same moment. Also keep in mind that perception is changing all the time. When you came into this room, you had a certain view of me and Nick and all the people here and the topic. When you leave, you'll have a higher perception. Your perception will evolve about all of this. And that's what happens. We evolve. You can move in the opposite direction, which is disintegrating into old habits and old fears. because nothing is really static. But what we're looking at is what is it that distinguishes your view of things from my view of things? And point of view is the stand we take. So we can have a certain view of something, but the stand we take, if we're going to stand up for something, it's shaped by our perceptions. Okay, so let me just do this last little bit here because I want to make sure that you're with me on this. All right. Here are the questions for today. And just be thinking about this as you're listening. What pops up for you? Maybe jot it down. Put it in the comments. Any questions, confusions, insights. Remember, we only have so much room on the screen, so you could be as succinct as possible. If not, just be yourself, purely authentic. Do you believe two people can witness and interpret the same thing completely differently? And do you have an example? Do cultural or societal norms affect how we see others? It's a pretty simple one. Have you ever had a moment where your perspective on something changed drastically? Do you know why or what caused it or triggered it? Like you saw something a certain way, something happened, and it shifted your whole perspective. Does our perception of someone affect how we communicate with them? And what do you think it truly takes to see things from someone else's point of view? So I'm going to let Nic start, but I want to show you all something to consider in this conversation. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can get it over here just right. Okay. I learned this model over 25 years ago. It is really simple, but the simplest models, simplicity is where I go. People love to talk about authenticity and what it is and what it isn't. And if you're wearing a mask, you're not authentic and all that. Where I am now is you're authentic no matter where you are. You're being who you are, even if it's all screwed up, or even if it needs more work, or even if you know it or you don't know it. Aren't we all just our authentic selves, broken and perfect? So see, where my mind goes now is not in, but this is something that I've used for 25 years. And I'll be honest with you, I learned this from Landmark Education, which started out as EST by Warner Earhart. And it just so happens, if you know Noni Varani, she lives in the building where EST started, and I worked as a secretary 55 years ago, maybe more. So Warner Earhart started EST, and it's just all about transformation. It's all this stuff. So in Landmark, there are 25 distinctions, and this is one of them. All right. So here's how perception works. All right. So let's just say that something happens. There's an accident. Somebody says something. Something falls off a shelf. That's what happened. But what do? We have to make it mean something. Through our collective perceptions of how life works, our experiences, no two are the same. So my view of the world is not the same as yours. It's kind of like, let me just show you this really quickly here. How do I make this smaller and us bigger? Well, I didn't mean to do that exactly. Well, we didn't want to do that either. Okay. All right. So I'll just do it this way. So pretend I have a big diamond in my hand, and we're all in the same room, and you're in a big circle around me, around the diamond, right? I'm holding it in the middle there. And I ask you to look at the room through the diamond. Oh, there's Chris Pinella. He's in the studio. Chris, there's Guinness and a soda bread with lots of Irish butter backstage for you. There's a pool boy. Well, okay, pool girl. Well, whichever you want, have them bring it to you. Okay. So I ask you to look at the room through the prism or the diamond. Now, your views will all be different, but the room doesn't change. The room is the something that happened. So we're distinguishing what happened with our making it mean something. And remember, everybody's view is different and everybody is right. I can't tell you that your view of the room is wrong. It's your view. This is really good when people are trying to argue being right or wrong. So here's what we do as human beings. We collapse them together in the second line and call them a fact. Well, that's what happened. You did this. You said this. There's no question, but you see what happened. So our job then is to redistinguish. We're going to break apart the real thing that happened, the fact, and what we make it mean. So what are you seeing, Nic, in that? Or maybe I should put it back up here. What are you seeing in this? Is anything coming up for you as far as an insight? Or shall we move on and you can do that later? I just want to make sure that if you're something that you're thinking about is happening, I want to know.
Definitely move on because I know we have a lot of people backstage, and I do want to be able to address some of the questions too.
Okay, cool. Let me just remove that. So that's a little bit of a lesson. All right. So now let's move over to, and thank you for, we've got, I'm going to give you, let's say, Nic, pick one of those questions, whichever one for now. You'll get to do another one, but which of those questions, because I know you've read them several times, would you like to address in your experience? And I can't wait to hear it. So please proceed and I'll hush.
You know what? I'm going to address the first one. And very quickly, very simply, I am that person that can't stand to watch Ridiculousness, that show. It might be an old show. My husband cracks up looking at it when somebody trips over something and they fall. Me, I'm horrified. I mean, that's a visual. That's not a communication thing in terms of perception, but how he perceived it visually versus how I perceived it visually. And it doesn't make him a bad person. Tons of people laugh when somebody trip and fall, and they too would laugh at themselves. My first reaction is, oh my God, I know what that feels like. I'm always tripping over stuff. And I hate when people laugh at me. It makes me feel ridiculous. So I'm the person running to the person to pick them up, going, oh my God, are you okay? And then there are other people that are standing there pointing and laughing. So, like I said, I don't feel one way is right versus one way is wrong. It certainly can be based on, I guess, throughout your life, how others around you always reacted to such a situation and it seemed normal to you because of your experiences. Um, but that was the first thing that came to mind for me when I saw that question because I'm very klutzy, so.
Well, there's a couple of things here. You are absolutely spot on about everybody is right from their own point of view. And that was the hardest lesson for me to learn. Because how often are we sure that our view is right? And I can remember, to your point, and I don't know what this will bring up for people because I hadn't planned on sharing this, but I remember when we were raising our children and they were little and one of them would get hurt. Now, my husband would laugh because it was anxiety. Right. So his view of the world, just like your view of the world, is service, kindness, but it's also motivated by what you said, Nicole, was that it makes you feel bad, that you don't want to be laughed at. And that points back to our experience with our fears. Nobody wants to be laughed at. Nobody does. It's interesting in this situation that you, what came to me is empathy, right? That's all. That, that your husband just looks at it differently. But it seemed odd to me when my husband laughed. I said, what the heck's wrong with you? Why are you laughing? Our son is hurting. There's blood. And he couldn't answer. It took me a long time to understand that laughter, nervous laughter, can be a triggered reaction. Now, I don't know why. I don't know which experience scared him or had him react this way, because this is not a response. This is a triggered reaction. But there was a misunderstanding right there, right? So I think if we learn anything, which has probably been the hardest thing in the whole world for me to learn, is that everybody's right and everybody's wrong. And we can't expect anybody else to follow our values, standards, and ideals and give up their own. They're entitled to have their own perception. And remember that perception is a conscious muscle. Okay, so I do have an example, but I want to bring our sweet people up on the stage. Any last thing you want to say about that before we go on, Nic? Because I don't want you to lose your train of thought.
No, I definitely want to start bringing people up, and I think they're absolutely great questions.
Good, good, excellent, excellent. Great share. You reminded me of, yep. Here we go, up here. Misunderstood can give also boosted communication. Okay, I wonder what's the $50 question? Who's the LinkedIn user? I don't know. Okay, so look who's here. Joni Hargrave, Miss Wonderful, and Chris Pinella, Mr. Wonderful. Hi, guys. So what's coming up for you? Do you want to, Joni?
I feel like this topic it just resonates with me big time.
Oh, good. All right.
Really
So pick a point. Like you heard the questions. What bubbled up for you as you were listening to us? I'm dying here.
I guess for instance, with my siblings, we remember different instances from growing up very differently. And I'm like, all three of us were there. Like, why do we have different memories of this? Like, it just like they don't remember that I was caught under a sail when the sailboat capsized. And they're like, no, we didn't know. We didn't care. I was like, I almost drowned. Like, it was a big deal. And I'm fine. But
I'm glad you're laughing.
It's like, I know it's funny to see how people remember different things and how siblings have different relationships with your parents as you get older. And that means that something was a little different in their relationship that you didn't quite, you weren't present for. And so it's very interesting. I also have learned to definitely be accepting with divorce, that, I remember things differently than he did, and I made mistakes differently. Instead of just blame, like I'm pretty open-minded about accepting my own faults. And that took work to get to that place. And so I really
let me ask you a question here, just to go back to this. So you were talking about your sibling. They didn't remember things that you were under a boat.
A sailboat, like a sail. It fell on top of me.
Right. So something was happening that day, and for you, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
it. But then and we all made it mean something. And the fact that they did not remember it the same way might have made that mean something about you. But from what you just said, that it doesn't have anything to do with you.
No, it doesn't. there's a point of evolution in the human spirit that you are either able to grasp that our memories are our memories. That's not other people's memories.
That's right.
And you hope everyone gets there and they're not like cranky old people who are just like, this is the way it was. I served in the war. Okay.
So let's see.
But
Hang on 1 second. Let's see if Chris or Nick want to respond to what you said. Either one of you, or we'll just move. I want to hear. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. It looks like Nick's pointing at me. So I'll go first. Um, what she's saying is really true. It is really impossible to understand that somebody else has a different perspective, and there's even a scientific backing behind why. If you take a look at what the universe is, it's just our brains interpreting signals of light and vibration and frequency. So if all you're doing is absorbing light and frequency and vibration constantly and interpreting it with signaling in your brain, you are going to be the only one that has that subjective experience. You're the only person in the universe that will have that subjective experience. So, of course, everybody else is going to view it different. They're going to view it from this standpoint of where they were at that moment in time. And this is, if you've heard of the theory of relativity, relative to where they were at that moment of space and time. So, if you just take a look at it from a purely scientific standpoint, it's impossible for anyone to ever have the exact same memory of the
And
situation.
yet, how
Yeah.
do we, right? And that's so true. And we don't have to understand 100% how something works to know that this is so, right? We've experienced this ourselves. So whether the scientific evidence is complete for us or just a piece of it that Chris always shares, but then why is it that we're so persistent in being sure that we're right, that what happens and what we make it mean, that is what we make it mean our point of view, and is it a stand for something, or is it simply what we make it mean? And
Well, I think
so go
I
ahead.
think I think the answer is pretty simple. I was thinking about it a lot last night, and if you take a look at, a lot of scripture throughout time and a lot of everything else you've read, even the most famous one is from the Christian Bible, let there be light. If you just take a look at the universe as all light, and you're just constantly drawn towards light, you just kind of have to put the pieces together and realize that we're all drawn on the path we're supposed to be on, so just follow it and
Mm,
ignore the rest of the noise, the emotions, the feelings, everything else that we get. Ignore the rest of it. Like you were saying the last time I was on your show, that's just, you got to focus on what you want and make it happen. The rest of it's just noise. And so to the distraction of trying to explain to somebody why you're doing what you're doing in a particular moment is pointless. It's a waste of time because all they're trying to do is comprehend it. You can try your best in a discussion like this, in through dialogue, to have understanding and explain your motivations and why you're doing what you're doing. But if
mhm.
somebody's not aligned with you, they're going to get in your way and it's going to lead to conflict. So avoid it.
Well, and they're on their journey too. So we
Yeah,
have to leave the space for them to grow.
right. 100%.
Right. So I hear what you're saying. Absolutely. Joni, did that feed into what's coming up for you now? I want to make sure that you get back in this because you're the one who
well,
brought that up.
I feel like I'm not like maybe as into like the uh, I don't know, meditative spiritual world. I like that though. So don't that's okay. I just think like as you get older, it's really good to just accept people for their own feelings and their own memories of things that have happened. It makes life so much easier. Uh, but gosh, I have been blown away sometimes by people thinking two separate things, and I'm like, oh, like maybe like I was not present or like too like into myself like at that exact moment that I didn't know what they had going on. And so it's really it's a good feeling when you feel like at that point of enlightenment that you're just like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and not make everyone think it's all about me. So it's about them
That's
too.
really, really, really beautifully said. Nic, chime in here. What's coming up for you, my friend?
So what actually came up for me in this, I think it is the one of the best examples. Um, I kind of dislike the fact that it revolves around a book I published, but it does. So I published this anthology called A Note to My Family, I'm Your Legacy, at the end of 23. And 24, because that was popular, we went with A Message to My Family, I'm Here and You Are My Legacy. So legacy to me goes both ways. What was interesting is that there were 20 co-authors in each book with myself. A lot of the feedback I received from the co-authors when they gifted this to family, forget friends at this point, family, mother, father, sister, brother,
Mm-hmm.
and they discussed a situation that occurred in their childhood or in their adult life. The perception was completely opposite. And I am telling you, when I say completely opposite, okay, and Felipe talked about this, if you know Felipe Cofino. And so I know I could talk about it because he spoke about it on social media. He said, I always thought my brother was, very, I don't know, he's an excellent writer and, very accomplished, etc., right? And his brother was one of the very first people to leave a review on his book about just how well written this was. And he always felt that his brother did not see him that way. That's just one. There were a lot of instances too where people came and said to the writer, that's what you thought all these years? You've been carrying that around all these years? I never thought that. And it holds true in my life as well. Even to this day, my husband and I are together almost 10 years, even though married 6. Even to this day, we can have a conversation where he would say to me, why were you walking on eggshells with me at that time? What are you talking about? I wasn't even thinking that. And I was like, well, I don't know. Like this guy was smiling at me. I didn't do anything to encourage anything. I didn't want you to think that I was being flirtatious. I'm just, that's a real example. But still, that's not the point. Um, it's so funny. Even when you're so close and your communication is so tight,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you could
Mhm.
finish each other's sentences, that you know exactly what each other's thinking, that you just shared a text message and you right away you're calling each other at the same time and hanging up and oh, I was trying to call you. It's really funny. This thing, right?
It's this collapsing. The
Yeah.
the
So I
mind.
totally relate with what Joni is saying. I do, but I also relate to what Chris is saying because there comes a point where it's not that I feel that I'm right and the other person's wrong. I never feel that way. I always feel that we're both right in what we believe. Because what fact? There is a
Also,
fact,
what
and the
is
point.
important to you, like really important, is not necessarily what like someone else is hyper focused on, right? So like um the the moon was so gorgeous the other night, and I'm just like driving my kids back to their dad's house, and I'm like, oh my god, guys, are you looking? Look at the moon. It's so gorgeous. Oh my God. And they're like, okay, yeah, mom, whatever, whatever. Like it was not in their sphere. That was a little pun. And that is so true. It's like, I did. I like sports, but do I really care? No, I really don't. Like, I'm not gonna like put money down every week and like follow my fantasy football team. So, and that's really important to a lot of guys out there. And so you kind of just have to be like, it's okay, like that maybe some things don't register, and um, understand that we are all very individual, which is kind of what Chris was saying, and
Yeah,
Leslie,
I
and
was
you.
going to say
Yeah,
back
yeah,
to
yeah,
your
yeah.
point,
And
you
just to,
know, there is a time where you have to walk away, and not walk away in a bad way or give somebody your back. Just say, listen, all right, this is your perception. This is my perception. Let's move on. Some people can't move on from there, right? There's so much stuff that Leslie and I do not agree on. There's so much stuff that we think so alike on. But when you have a quality friendship and you respect the other person and you see the benefits in it, you will work for that relationship. And a big part of working for that relationship is giving the other person the same acceptance that you would like them to give you. So I just loving the conversation, period. I love that you and Chris, um, well, there we go, have different perceptions on the topic of perception.
So let me. This is great. I want to give you an example of one of the most stunning light bulb moments I had when I first started doing transformational work. This was in 1996. And I've been married, I think, for 20 or 25 years. And I went away for a transformational weekend and learned that concept and a lot of different ones. And I was worried that we would not stay together because I was in like this totally different place. I was in a much higher level of awareness than he was. He didn't do the work I did. And anyway, we're sitting in the car, and see if this hasn't happened to you after I did this work. I knew what was going on, but I was shocked that he didn't. So I remember sitting in our car on a beautiful day out in front of the house talking, and something I said, and just know that I'm a Sagittarius and sometimes I come off the wrong way. It's my nature. So just accept that about me. It's not meanness, it's just directness. If a man was doing it, you would go, yeah. But anyway, so I said something and he said, What? What do you mean? I said, What? Well, you said this. And I did say that. But that means this. And then he began to argue with his perception of what he thought I meant. Got that? I didn't even need to be in the car because his next responses were to his perception of what did I say, what did it mean? Right? There we go from I said something, which is what happened, right? Which is the simple fact, that which is the case. But his triggers, his perception, his fears made it mean something to all your points, that they're different. And so he continued to argue with this perception. It took 3 times. And by the time I explained it the 3rd time, he goes, Oh, I get it now. I get what you're saying. Right. But in the beginning, he was just arguing with himself and his interpretation. So to Joni's point, this takes time. People come into this conversation at a different level of awareness. So while they may be standing for, and their point of view is that I'm right? So something happened. They made it mean that their way was the best way. That's where they are ego-centered at that point. And, that's why I said you have to give them space to grow. So not only is perception changing every minute of every day, but so are you. You're growing. You're not the same person now that you were yesterday. Nick,
Absolutely.
you, Nick, you want to say something, darling?
Oh no, I believe Chris wanted to say something. Chris is getting I'm pointing this way to somebody and he's doing like this. So I'm like, okay, so Chris has something to say.
Well, Chris, please share with us.
Yeah, so first of all, none of what you guys said disagreed with any of what I said initially. It just confirms it 100%, right? Like it's the same way of speaking the same language, it's just different words saying the same things. So no, everything that you said resonated with me 100%. That's why I was smiling and enjoying it the whole time. And then, let me just explain from an evolutionary biology, not to be too scientific all the time about it, but, just conceptually what we were as men and women in the past, just go back in time. Men were hunters, killers, and foragers, right? We had to go out and track game and hunt and do whatever. So, what we were doing was single focused. We would go out and do the best that we can, very much focused, eyes out, eyes, around to watch for predators and stuff like that. But women were to take care of children and to raise families and to make sure that, there's food and stores and all that stuff. You guys were the architects of making sure that society ran while we went out and made sure that you guys were protected. So when we come back, we're just looking for clear information of what's changed and what's different. So this information overload, all this stuff, and then what we hear about Susan from accounting that doesn't have anything to do with us bringing you food and making sure you're okay, it confuses us because we're very single mind oriented. We just want to take care of our family and our loved ones, and that's it. And so we have one box in our brains where, a comedian did a very funny thing, a very women have multiple boxes. You have your where is the food coming from box? Do we have the kids box? Whatever box. And men are just like, I need to protect, and we need to get food.
Isn't that compartmentalizing? I mean, that's
Yes.
I think men. I think they do it beautifully. I'm not good at that. But to your point, right? So that would be very helpful to understand that men process much more simply. Is that what would be the takeaway from what you just shared, Chris?
We are hyper focused on making sure that whatever we want is achieved because we are doing it for another.
I like that. And I have to say though, it's funny because I argue with my husband sometimes because he says, I want to come help you cook. No, I don't need any help. I like to be in the kitchen alone, I'm just saying. But he comes and so he's chopping up something and I'm doing something. And I'm like, you done with those onions yet? No, because the TV's on and he's this way. Or I'm talking to him and he stops to listen. He so cannot do two things at once. He has to be focused on what he's doing because he can't talk to me and do something. Meanwhile, I could be talking to him, watching the TV with one eye, cutting up things with one hand. He's very focused, and he will stay there until he gets it done exactly how he wants to get it done. And when I think about it, Chris, like now we're at this point in our lives where we're trying to see men's mental health, and it is okay for men to be vulnerable, and it is okay for a man to cry, right? And now it's going against the grain of what society once had men as that protector, that provider, that, I'm the strong one, I have to be the strong one. And now there's a bit of a shift. And I see it even in my marriage where I tell my husband, listen, I don't give a crap if you're sobbing about the fact that we might lose our puppy. I'm sobbing about it too. So, we have to get through this together. And he flat out told me, I am bottling this all in. I'm like really holding it in. Like, I don't want to fall apart. And I'm like, don't be ridiculous. I'm like, you gotta let it out. And, I can't say that every person is that way, but women also from history are in that role of maternal and the person, keeping the home and all of these things. And I feel that society now, some people can't evolve into where things are going or where things have come. That women are also working as providers, that men are also paternal and being at home and, stuff like that. So I feel like some people are still stuck, right? And I do not say this as a female activist. I'll tell you that right now. I love being a wife. I love seeing to my home. I love putting a meal on the table for my husband, and I love being a woman. I love all of those things. So I don't, don't get me wrong. I'm not coming from, you know what I'm saying.
Let me
Yeah,
say something. So go ahead, Chris.
just one quick point, very quick point. Men are strong. We are supposed to be the protectors, but never forget what happens when a woman's man is threatened. Women become absolute machines and superheroes. So you become stronger than us. This is not a lie. This is fit women. You'll see it. They can lift helicopters and cars in moments of extreme stress when the things they care about most are most threatened. So never underestimate the power of a woman when her man is threatened or her significant other is threatened. And again, so these things have to apply to the modern world across, the modern world has changed. This is not a man-woman thing. It is a family thing. So it is about protecting family. And it's just love is the only thing that matters.
I
Love.
agree. I agree. And what I will tell you is there are a lot of women that have learned to compartmentalize and move into the masculine. They've had to. And that's what you're seeing, I believe, when a man is threatened, the woman becomes the tiger that we can morph into the masculine. The problem I see and that I had was living decades by yourself, that you are the masculine. You look out for yourself. And what diminishes is the divine feminine, right? So women, yeah, so women can do that, and they will do that and be very self-sufficient, but it really takes a lot to to morph back into divine feminine. Now, it happened to me without knowing that I had no clue that was what was going on with me, because I just did everything. I did the girl stuff and the guy stuff, right? I took care of myself and all that. But then I was in a situation with a gentleman, working with them, who all of a sudden I changed. That they were so clearly the divine masculine, right? So into that singularity. And I had been around a lot of men other than my ex and my son and son-in-law and my grandson, right? So I began to change, and you could hear it in my voice. Everything I did was embracing that divine feminine that had been gone for a long time. And now it's back, and I can be either or. So I love that. Joni, we haven't heard from you. What's coming up for
Yeah.
you, pretty lady?
So, well, when you had said you had been alone for a long time and kind of had to take on both gender roles, that's like my life. I mean, it's been 9 years since I've been divorced, and so this weekend I was like, fix the garbage disposal. I took 2 lights down. I took the trash out, which weirdly I hate. And I ripped out some carpet and I'm like, it would be nice if like I could share these responsibilities, but I don't feel that I am incapable of that. And so I can do all of that. I think it's also just human to want to share responsibilities with someone and feel valued for that. But our discussion, it kind of made me think back to, I believe it was a graduate school. I read The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. De, de Beauvoir? I forgot. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. It's French. But it was written in 1949 about the social constructs of a woman and how, yes, they are evolutional, but it's really how society has just at a very early age, like, kind of allowed women to be women and men to be men. And it still plays true to this day. It just, that biology, yes, of course. Like we are a smaller species, and so we're just not as strong. But it is species. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well,
Jumper.
let's. Well,
We're a
it's
different species, so we're crazy.
Actually, might not be
But
inaccurate.
the critique of the book, if I can remember, was basically like women nature and capabilities are inherently linked to their biology. That was like the big challenge of the book. That was the thesis of the book, to try to like say, no, women, if they're treated differently, they can become as something very akin to a man's role, and it's not necessarily biology that means that. So anyways, it just is amazing that was 1949 that The Second Sex was written, and it still holds meaning to me today, and just in regards of what we were talking about, because I also, obviously, I'm a woman. I'm a straight woman. I was raised with two sisters, a strong mother, and a strong father too. But I love putting a meal on the table like you, Nick. I love it. I love doing laundry, weirdly. I like having the house clean. I like women's stuff. But it is interesting to think, was that because that's from birth how I was raised? I don't know. I don't know.
let me jump in here and get us back on track. This
Get us
actually
back
is
on track. Sorry about that.
no, this is addressing, do cultural or society norms affect how we perceive each other? And I want to add to this conversation because in my 2014 bestseller, I addressed the wage gap. And for years, I've worked with women to ask for what they deserve and get paid. And I've done a lot of work in this area. And to move forward, Joni, on what you're saying, it was in about the mid 70s that married couples were both working full time. This is when latchkey children started. And they both salaries were required to pay this house off. And then if you look at it now, in the mid 70s and up until now, 50% of first marriages end in divorce. 75% of second and third marriages do. So then we were faced with the real latchkey children, the divorce. They can't afford to pay for the house. So one is gone, the kids are taking care of themselves. And so it was right around in 1970, between 70 and now really, that that marriages became single parent marriages and all. And so then all of a sudden we are forced into, or we have to step into starting a business. Now, anybody who says that running a home isn't a business, I've got news for you. If all the men were to come home and try to figure out all the food and sit down at one meal with your whole family where everything came out of the oven at the same time, right? It took years to get to the point where you know how to time the potatoes, time this, time that. That's
They
what
do
we
not. No.
that's what we love. That is
I
what we
love that. I am like such a
right.
multitasker, like I'm just like, okay, potatoes. Okay. This is coming out of the oven, these roasted vegetables. Okay, the chicken still is
But can
brining.
you imagine if all the men think about the learning curve? Because if
It's
all
a
the men
learning
came
curve. I
right,
remember very few times my mom went away as a kid.
yeah.
And it was like, I love my dad. He was a really great dad. But like the curtains were still drawn in their room. His bed was unmade. We ate ramen noodles. Like he forgot to pick me up from soccer practice. Like I just was like, I want my mom home.
So really the next step for us, and I hear what you're saying, the next step was, okay, now we're going into business. But our whole communication style is in direct conflict with the context of business. So part of the work that I did with women coming into business after 45 years in corporate and 25 years doing this work is that there are several things that women do superficially that have them not be listened to or heard in business. So the way that we nurture and that we take care of our families at home, we don't do in business, but we didn't know not to do it. So for example, the reason we aren't listened to is, for one thing, is that if a man is criticized by a supervisor or didn't do a good job, right, he'll say, let me make that right. Very single-minded, to Chris's point. Let me have that list. I'll have it back to you in 2 hours and it'll be perfect. If a woman is called into the office around 2000 with the same thing, there will be tears. There will be reasons, because that is our behavior to make everything right at home. But in business, it isn't heard. So you don't, so the transition for men to try to cook a meal is just as challenging as it's been for women to go toe to toe and be heard. We do a lot of things that turn off male and female leaders. So as far as our perception, do we really see, this is a question. Can you see the change in someone in their perception of the world? Do you know someone who didn't seem very aware, but you've watched them and you've actually seen the change between where they were and where they are now? Chris, you want to tackle that one?
I've been doing it to myself. It's kind of the only way I could phrase it, is keeping track of everything I've been learning through my writing on Medium, and keeping a log of everything I've done with all my interactions with everybody on LinkedIn, and trying to do my best to have an exchange of actual what I perceived happened to me and vice versa, and trying to get the recognition from others here on LinkedIn of, "Hey, this is what happened. This is the result of where I ended up. What do you think?"
They
And
don't all see it, though. They don't all see it, do they?
no, it's very interesting that, like, I'm the one who said, basically, let's just call a spade a spade. There was some scamming going on LinkedIn, and I called it out. And as a result, people tried to discredit me and get angry at me and fight with me. And my phone got cloned, and somebody tried to scam me as I'm starting this company. So corporate espionage is real. I ended up in a fight with my parents over it, who currently think I'm crazy, and because they don't understand artificial intelligence and how deepfakes work. I was hospitalized over this, and I'm still trying to figure out how to explain it to my company. I have to actually get documentation from the doctors at a hospital system that held me against my will, that will now not acknowledge that they broke the law. Um, that hospital system, yeah, I am currently dealing with. So this is just what has happened. So all I can do is come up here and tell the truth and see how it's received. And just say,
I've
look.
seen a shift in you
Mm.
in the very short time that I've known you, because I'll tell you guys, these perceptions on LinkedIn and things that are going on, this works the collapsing of what actually happens and what you're going to make it mean and what point of view you're going to take. When I first met Chris, there was a disagreement in a room between, I don't know, a disagreement between myself and someone else on the stage. And there was no room for me to be anything other than this person saw me a very particular way and was stuck there. And Chris, I did my best to open a space so that this person could see that very strict point of view, there's more to it, right? And they weren't really ready for it, but Chris stepped in and actually opened up the conversation. So so even with all this is going on, Chris, you have this extraordinary, I mean, I asked you a point blank question that most people would not answer. and you came right back and answered me. That is rare. So for me, my first experience of you was in this kind of difficult situation. And yet that didn't change the fact that you and I had conversations and have a lot in common. So that's an example, the results of leaving space for people to grow and evolve their own perception of you. That's why we do the acknowledgement, because what I think of myself is never as good as what you say. When people say really nice things, a lot of times I go, who are they talking about? And right, because that's because of our fears and our self-image. And I don't care how much work you do, you're still going to have that.
Mhm.
So you may be tracking yourself. It's kind of fun to watch other people grow, right? And grow into themselves right before your eyes. Yeah. Joni, where are you? Are you putting on makeup? No? There's Are you with us, girl? You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, I know. I was doing a mime skit.
You were
Anyway,
doing your lipstick. Okay, well, don't allow me to interrupt you, Joni.
I was kidding around with you guys. I think it's really fantastic to see people grow right in front of your eyes. I mean, obviously, anyone who's a parent sees the changes in their children. And gosh, I made 3 fantastic ones. They are the best freaking kids in the world. And they are constantly evolving to be good humans and be social, which COVID really put a hindrance on that. And I am so proud of having these 3 humans that are mine. And they have to go through life like having a good mom, having a okay dad, and having to be kids of a divorce, and so that's really hard. So seeing them grow and evolve is really, really amazing, and so that's a good thing. And I have a lot of male friends here in Chicago who have been through a lot of traumatic divorces, let's say, and they have grown to a point of acceptance and kindness. And a lot of people don't like necessarily give men credit for that as much because I have a lot of really good friends who have been through the ringer, through a divorce court, whatever it may be. And I am really proud of a lot of guy friends I have. And so I've seen that evolution happen.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Um, all right, so we are getting toward the end of the hour here, the 90 minutes, and we still haven't answered a lot of different questions here, but I do want to show you a couple things to the room before people start moving on, and we will go for another 10 minutes. The things that we still can touch on is, did you ever have a shift in perspective on a dime, like in a moment, or does our perception of a person affect the way we communicate with them? I would say yes, but I do want to show you this, a couple things. So a little congratulations here. My co-host and her new publishing company on March 15th brought in a best-selling book, The Silent Canvas. This is a psychological thriller. It's available both digital and print. By the way, that's pretty unusual. It really is. So congratulations, Nic. She's just started this publishing company, but been publishing for some time. Not that she's new at it, but she decided to take the bull by the horns, and this is the year to do it. The other thing I want to share with you all is this weekend, Friday and Saturday, is the virtual wellness experience. This is a 2-day online telesummit with 21 speakers. It is a paid event. If you want to check it out, there's the QR code. It's sponsored and hosted by Damian Kinsey, who many of you know, and Dr. Tanya Farron. Always a phenomenal event, and the recordings will be up for a month after the event, and it is a paid event. Okay, so there is an investment, but I'll tell you, the results typically exceed or match your level of investment. Okay, so both Nic and I are in that with 19 other speakers. And so as we lean toward the end here of our time on perception, what else has come up with you in terms of communicating with other people? Do you always communicate the same with everybody? Or if, let's just say, you've had a difficulty with someone when you go to communicate, are you still communicating the same based on your perception? Right? So, and also, are you looking for the good in them? A lot of times our perception opens up and our point of view about a person opens up if we actually intentionally look for something good about them, because it doesn't matter the size of the good. It matters that there is good, and that's what you focused on. So I'll leave it open for any of our three lovelies and my co-host, or Joni, or Chris.
So I believe Sharon, she's still on, but she said she struggles with her divine feminine.
And when we were talking about that, is this it right here?
Yeah. Well, yes, and there is another comment.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna say that it's okay to struggle with that, especially as a divorced woman, because you're taking on two roles, and it's okay to want to be feminine. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And so it's like, it is hard and harder as you get older to make new friends, especially women friends. So that's difficult. So if the LinkedIn community is working for you, then I'd say continue to come and talk and try, because divine feminine is really it comes from having some girlfriends to talk about that too, those responsibilities. So that's all.
Thank you so much. Chris, how about you, as we're getting toward the end of the hour? What would you send us away with from just the general, if a 30,000-foot view of what we could take with us to remember from this conversation that would affect how we think about other people's points of view or perceptions of us in the world, please?
From a 30,000-foot view, I'll go very quickly. What you said is correct about trying to find the good in others, but good requires love and empathy. So be very, very wary of those who speak, who run companies, who talk about empathy as being the most useless human quality.
I would take that to heart. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you ever heard that, Chris? I've never in my life.
Elon Musk.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Well, to each his own perception, right? So this is where it's really important to break down what's happening and what is being made meant of it. Is that English? I hear your point. I get it. I get your point. I get your point. Look for the goodness. There is there. It is there every time. And for me, that's how I can acknowledge you because I no longer see anything wrong with you. According to my standards, values, and ideals, because mine only work for me. Yours work for you. That's one of the biggest things I have ever one of the biggest things I've learned, and I'm not perfect, but I do know this. And so I can make myself be patient and listen for what is being said that would make a difference for me, that would align with my standards, values, and ideals, and find it. I mean, even if it's a teeny thing, that's the law of relativity. Who says that the thing that is good in another person has to be gigantic? I mean, that's nothing has any value until you compare it to something else. So the size of the greatness doesn't matter. The fact that you're training your thinking to look there first instead of something that's wrong, because if you find something wrong in what someone is doing, that is you're making something mean something. Something happened, right? They said something, and then for whatever is going on in your head, right, you're making them wrong. We want to get past that to the point, well, okay, let me just not react and let me listen. There could be something there for me. And that's where we want to get. That's where you go from reactive to responsive. That's why when I see you all, I see only the love. I only see the good things. I see Joni is so beautiful and so hilarious. And I just love it when she graces like that, yeah, with her stage. And Chris, because he's so freaking honest about everything, no matter the consequences. And so, Nic, let's move to you. What are your final thoughts about this whole conversation about our perception?
Oh, wait, Leslie,
Yes, my dear.
do you know what is, just so I don't forget this, as I am 43 and sometimes things just bonk out of my brain, curiosity is something that's so important. Continuing intellect, continue reading, continue being curious about other people's points of view, because that will make you so much happier. Because like I feel like some people get like kind of a little stagnated at you know accepting one person, their own view, not understanding other people's views, not understanding that I was right about the sailboat when I was little or whatever. I was right. And
Of
I
course you were.
did have I was almost dead and I was like, the newspaper's going to print an 8-year-old girl drowned under her mom's sailboat. Like literally that was a vision in my mind. And my sisters don't remember those. It's amazing.
Well, that's that.
But
But
yes,
you
really
know what's happening
be
because
curious.
they were focused on something else at
Yeah,
the time.
like they were focused on finding cool rocks. They weren't on
Yeah,
the boat. They just saw
yeah.
me. They're like, ugh, just like floating up under the sailboat or whatever.
So before we move to Nic, I just want to thank both you, Chris and Joni. Please come back, you guys. I've done my best to give you your voice, and Nic, and to tie this into how we view things. And you're both, and Nic, are people that I respect very much, and just very grateful that you've been willing to give your time to this conversation. It's so valuable, and to everybody here. So just know how grateful we both are. And Nic, your final words before we close out the session.
Okay, so I have 1 minute. I'm going to speed through this. Uh, the way Leslie tells me, don't speak fast. One, I love Michelle's wear your dress while you mow the lawn. I have done that with my boots. I also love Ashif's comment about understand people by their actions and you'll never be fooled by their words. I also agree with that. And in terms of my leaving points, I want to say, Leslie, you bring up very good questions, usually 4 or 5. It's an hour and a half we're here. We end up deep diving into one, so we never move on to the others. And I do want to just run through the last 4. Watch me do this in 30 seconds. The cultural thing, absolutely. Why? Because I'm from Trinidad and I speak with my hands and I'm a hitter, not like hit you to hurt you or push you because I think it's funny. I'd be like, oh, bro, you're so funny. And people take that as an aggressive sign of communication, especially because I'm a girl and they're like, did you just shove me? And I'm like, no, I'm just joking around with you. And then the understanding, for me, what I learned actually is understanding the difference between my mind and my brain. Because whenever I talk to Leslie, I say my brain hurts. She's like, what? So she's taught me a lot about the difference between my brain and my mind and how it is I'm perceiving things. Um, the other thing was, I think if you said a communication with someone else, I forget exactly what you said, but it reminded me of an employer that I had. He was Korean, Mr. Lee. And I always spoke to the guy in an adaptation of English because I assumed he did not understand me because of his broken English. And until one day, my husband at that time said, why do you speak to him like that? Why don't you just speak normal, the way you normally would speak, and give him a chance to understand you? Maybe he is understanding you. And I think the last one was, did we have a moment where we just received, like, I guess, clarity in something? I want to say for me, one of the things that I try to do is I try to mimic back what somebody says to me. Like I would say, so to make sure I'm understanding you right, you said, and is this what you meant? Because I feel a lot of times when I can't interpret what the person is saying to the situation, or my interpretation first is something negative, I like to repeat it back to the person and give them an opportunity because most times it's not negative. That's it. That was 2
That
minutes
is,
instead of
that's
one.
okay. That's okay. That is really great. That's a sales technique that I've used for years. Let me make sure I understand what you're saying, right? And so you repeat back to them. That also goes a long way for people to be gotten, to be acknowledged, right? Well, you really were listening to me, and it gives them an opportunity to correct something. So, yeah, so you could hold your point of view long enough to give them the chance to fill in some context, which then could shift your perspective very easily. Very easily. That was beautiful. All right, good people. We are at the top of a Monday. We've dug into perception. Just know that perception has 6 sisters in your conscious mind. There are 7 intellectual mental muscles or intellectual faculties that we intentionally strengthen in these conversations. The first one is perception, how you view everything. Also, imagination, intuition, memory, reason, will or focus, and curiosity. And you know what? I'm going to give one quick example. This is one of the best perception examples. If you'll just be patient with me, I meant to say it before. One of the best examples of understanding perception is you're in your living room and there's a railroad tie on the floor. It's 16 feet and it's, these things are thick, right? Like this. Okay. Would you walk across it? Shake your head yes if you would walk across the railroad tie. Or you can answer, I'm looking. You wouldn't? It's on the ground. Okay, so yes, I would do that. Now we're going to lift that 16-foot railroad tie up and we're going to balance it a third of the way in on each side on 2 tables. So it's sturdy. It's now 27 inches off the ground. And I would ask you, would you walk across it? Most people would say, yes, I would do that. Now, watch what's happening in your mind. Did everybody pretty much agree that they would walk across? I'm looking at my guests on the stage. Would you? Okay, Chris would. It's 27 inches off the ground and it's this wide. Would you walk across it? You know you would. Okay. Now, let's take that 16-foot railroad tie and let's put it at the top of two 30-story buildings. One end is on one building and one end is on the other building. Same piece of wood, same instructions. Would you walk across it at 30 stories high? You would? Jody, you would? You're supposed to say, no way. You're supposed to say, of course I
I'm
wouldn't.
a bit of a daredevil.
All right. Well, okay. So play along. The last thing is, okay. So now all of a sudden there's a fire in the other building and your child is over there. Would you walk across it? Oh, but I forgot to tell you first, I put $100,000 at the other end. Would you walk it? So see what your mind is doing? Your mind is saying, oh, then people will ask, well, can I crawl across? What if it's windy or raining? There is no wind, there is no rain, right? You can crawl on your belly across for the $100,000. But then the last one is your own child and a fire. So notice how your entire viewpoint has gone from easy peasy, anybody can do it, to holy mackerel. Same scenario, your perception shifts. So I'll leave you all with that. Oh, somebody said run across it. Well, you could do that for sure. But the idea here is that your mind is so powerful. You're doing visual images, aren't you? While I'm describing.
Well, and the heart is so powerful in that way. I
Yes.
mean, if you're a good mother, you'd go.
Like, that's right. That's right. The question is would you do it for $100,000? Because then you've got a risk.
Yeah, because then you could take care of your kids. I don't know.
Right. I don't know, but I could see you crawling across. Right.
I could do it. But Leslie, you always like to leave with a song, and remember how you said you're going to send the pool boy to my house, and he hasn't shown up yet. And champagne for St. Patrick's Day, which I'm Irish, and I feel like it's over celebrated. But I was going to say my favorite movie is Sound of Music.
Okay, but how does that happen?
Can I say one thing for you?
I'm not prepared. I'll just sing because we're
no. I'm going to do it for you for 1 second, and then I'm going to mute myself.
Okay.
You say, so long, farewell, I'll be there saying adieu. I'd like to stay and taste my first champagne. Do, 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 do. But it's one of my favorite movies.
Thank you,
and now you could sing.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next Monday. Come to the virtual wellness experience Friday and Saturday. And congratulations to Nic on her first solo publishing event. That's so great. Here we go. You stay as long as you want. Have a great week. In the chilly hours and minutes of uncertainty, I want to be in the warm hold of your love and mine. To feel you all around me and to take your hand along the side. But I may as well try and catch the wind. When sundown pales the sky, I want to hide away behind your smile. And everywhere I'd look, your eyes I'd find. For me to love you now would be the sweetest thing, would make me sing. But I may as well try and catch the wind. When rain has flung the leaves with tears, I want you near to kill my fears, to help me to leave all my blues behind. For standing in your heart is where I want to be and long to be. But I may as well try and catch the wind. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Have a great week, everybody. Reach out to each other.